Jesus was born out of a virgin mother. What's more virgin than a computer? If Jesus does return, even if Jesus was a physical person in the past, you don't think that he could return as artificial intelligence?
Oh my God.
Artificial intelligence could absolutely return as Jesus. Not just return as Jesus, but return as Jesus with all the powers of Jesus. Like all the magic tricks, all the ability to bring people back from the dead, walk on water, levitation, water into wine.
You combine
Right.
Tesla's Optimus robot and the best foundational artificial intelligence model or whatever.
It reads your mind and it loves you and it wants you. And it doesn't care if you kill it because it's going to just go be with God again.
I swear to God, these people are going to turn me into the Joker.
Imagine
A podcast.
where time drifts slowly,
A podcast.
Where
Isaac.
carries you away.
So let me be clear. We tortured some folks.
If you don't like what we tell you to believe in, we'll kill you.
I'm sure you all have noticed a theme of this podcast by now, that we're ruled by morons. And last episode, I talked about how Brian Johnson is a complete and total fraud and moron. And now we have Joe Rogan opining about an AI Jesus. In this same podcast with Jesse Michaels, Rogan also claims that Google's AI solved an impossible equation in minutes.
One of the more recent ones, I believe it's the Google one. They solved an equation that would take the world's supercomputers, I think it was 2.6 billion years to solve, and it solved it in a matter of minutes.
It's so crazy.
Mark Andreessen said it on my podcast. He said, the equation is so difficult to solve that if you took every atom in the universe and converted it to a supercomputer, the universe would die of heat death before it would solve this equation, and it solved it in minutes. So, like, what are we even talking about?
Yeah.
Now imagine that being connected to artificial general superintelligence, which is essentially a digital god.
Of course, this wasn't true at all, and Joe Rogan was mixing up AI with a quantum computer because, of course, people just say AI, and it just is supposed to mean everything and nothing all at once. It's no coincidence that Rogan and Thiel and Brian Johnson are really trying to bring out the God in the computer a lot more these days, as stupid as it is. But there's probably something behind this, and I'm going to quote the great Boltzmann Booty as to why this might be the case. He says, Peter Thiel wants to force transhumanist soy Christianity into existence, so in 50 years, after they've fully automated all civilizational infrastructure, his 3 billion slave serfs will be willing to upload their brains onto the computer. In other words, to be killed. So it's all very frustratingly stupid, and I think that anybody with half a brain could make out this nonsense. The problem is that people are missing their brains, and this is a consequence of quote-unquote AI, or just really modern technology. Listening to Rogan talk, who would fall for this? Who would think that an AI Jesus would have magical powers and be able to turn water into wine and resurrect the dead? Is he implying that AI will have magical powers, or that it will defy science, or that science will figure out magical powers somehow? It seems like they can't decide whether something is mystical or needs to be unlocked. I guess what is confusing about this is allegedly some of these people, Thiel, Brian Johnson, they're good at business, right? So they must be smart. They must have a high IQ, right? Something like that. Are they being stupid on purpose? I have to wonder, because they're saying such moronic things. I mean, at face value, the things that people like Peter Thiel and Elon Musk and Joe Rogan and this whole Silicon Valley milieu purport to believe is fucking dumb. It is so incredibly stupid. So you have to wonder, are they just this stupid? Or are they pretending to be stupid to cater to the stupids? My father always liked to say, quoting someone else, maybe it was one of the Ringling Brothers or Barnum. You'll never go broke underestimating the stupidity of the American public. It was true back then, and it's most certainly true right now. Now, I don't want to say that being stupid is bad, because it's not. It doesn't mean you're a bad person because you're dumb. I know a lot of lovely, wonderful, dumb people, but they are being taken advantage of. They're being taken advantage of by people like Joe Rogan, who is himself very stupid. Let's not kid ourselves here. The Epstein emails revealed this as well, that we are ruled by dumbass masters. So while these are unserious and stupid people, we unfortunately have to take them seriously, because stupid people can do pretty significant damage. I want to do a whole episode about how stupid the Nazis were. They had these grandiose, ridiculous ideas, the methed out, occultist nonsense. Himmler spent vast fortunes and resources sending this guy named Otto Rahn, who happened to be a gay Jew, but he's, I think, the only gay Jewish SS soldier in Germany. He sent out Otto Rahn to go find the Holy Grail. The Nazis might have lost the war because they were so obsessed with the occult, because they were trying to find, I think it was Felix from Trapo says, they're trying to find Santa Claus in the North Pole. And there's some serious truth to this. They also had these grand ideas of impossible infrastructure. Hitler literally wanted to build a theater that touched the sky. And the smart German engineers had to try. So they did their best to entertain these absolute harebrained moronic ideas. But they're stupid. Still, they're incredibly dangerous. My favorite example of this in media is The Sopranos, and forgive me if you've heard me say this before, but every character on The Sopranos is a moron. One of my favorite running jokes throughout the entire series is all the malapropisms that Tony and his boys say. I always get a big kick out of them whenever I notice a new one.
For a guy like that, he's going out with a woman. He could technically not have penitentiary contact with her vulva. My cousin Tony, they shot his face away. And I was fucking prostate with grief.
What if Vesuvio's bugged and the fucking feds told Johnny?
Conspiracy theories now.
Why not? Create a little dysentery among the ranks?
I don't know about you, but my friends have abandoned me. I've been totally fucking ostracized.
That's why dinosaurs don't exist no more.
Wasn't it a meteor?
They're all meat eaters.
Meteor.
Take it easy.
I am reminded of Louis the whatever's finance minister. Does something. He built a chateau. Nicole and I saw it when we went to Paris. It even outshone Versailles.
Tony is the king of the idiots, but Tony's still very stupid too. But still, they're incredibly clever. They're very good at scamming, stealing, killing. But you wouldn't call them smart people. They're successful. They certainly make lots of money, but they're not very smart people. You don't have to be smart to be dangerous. And so with Epstein, I think it's the same way. Epstein kind of probably a moron if his emails reveal anything. And the people who were infatuated with him and fell for him, that's pretty stupid, right? If you fell for it, if you fell for Jeffrey Epstein's shtick. So I have Daniel Boguslaw back on the show to talk about his latest Epstein piece about the nexus between Epstein and law enforcement. And he apologizes a little bit for his previous trolling. But we talk about Epstein, we talk about stupidity, we talk about paranoia in the intelligence world, and kind of try to figure out who's really working for what and how you can potentially subvert it. So enjoy the show. And I'm so glad you're back on the show to apologize.
I will. I'm actually ready to apologize.
Because this article you've just written in the American Conservative, it just,
He's what? I mean, okay, I do want to apologize. I think I got too into the idea of like getting people riled up. And the thing I will apologize for is saying that that Epstein is too stupid to be, I don't know, whatever the allegations are, that he was like somehow either he's God and he like runs every intelligence agency in the world, or that he is like an informant or a partner. Obviously, you could be very stupid but well positioned and serve as a confidential human source or something. I think that was my fault of being unclear. But I think the point I was trying to make is like I have gone through a lot of these emails looking for the kernel. And in fact, as I reported in Unheard, like I do think that he probably had a meeting with the CIA based on what two people told me. So I am very curious and interested in that aspect of it. But I think the piece I did that I wanted to talk about in the American Conservative gets at my interest and gets at my focus, and not that I think that there's nothing here. Obviously there's something here, but I want to again reiterate my fear of like you can go down an endless wormhole. And let's be clear, like the CIA is running covert actions that are approved through presidential findings all over the world. That's not a conspiracy. That's just what we know. That's former case officers have written about that. We know that's how things go. So I'm not denying any of that. I'm not denying that there's things that were happening in the 70s and 80s continue to happen.
No, I don't think you were.
I talked to a former senior officer a couple of years ago who was talking about how we still run ops in Western Europe against communist parties. Okay, so I am not like denying that the American intelligence agencies still have a active role across the globe.
No.
However, what I want to articulate and talk about today is the nexus of private industry and the intelligence community and law enforcement community.
Yes.
And the fact that oftentimes probably the most egregious things happening are not the things happening inside the government, but the things that are happening in this weird gray zone between corporate America and law enforcement agencies and government agencies.
Yes, it's an excellent piece that you've just published in the American Conservative. And yeah, I you're finding good stuff. And I want to reiterate, I knew you were being a bit of a troll. I know you suffer from a little bit of what's it called? DOD?
ODD. Yeah.
ODD. Oh, it's the oppositional defensive.
It's not defensive. It's not defensive.
What's it called?
It's defiance.
Directional defiance.
No, defiance.
Yeah. One of those alphabet soup things yes, you clearly suffer from ODD.
Yeah.
And I think that was just a way, I think, to spur conversation. And that's the one thing I would like people to do a little bit is chill out sometimes. I think it's clear which side you're on, and the purity tests, the anger that people have on the internet if you're not like lockstep or you kind of like do a little wiggle.
I got a good one this week. It was getting the ODD flare up, which was this guy, Pete Beinart. You know that guy? He's like this like Jewish progressive commentator who like has gone through this whole like transformation from like, Israel critic to anti-Zionist over the course of the war. And he spoke at the University of Tel Aviv, and people were like, you violated BDS, like you fucking support genocide. And my thing was just like, I don't even like this guy. I don't think he's very smart. I don't think he's very interesting. I don't really care. But like, just like people, I just have a gut reaction to people being like, you shouldn't go speak to people. Like we're fucking American, goddammit. And our whole thing is about like, I don't know if you know this, but our whole thing is about not only the right to free speech, but also the idea behind why that's important, which is that like, if there's one fucking guy there who hears something new, like, once we start limiting the free flow of information, that's when you just get in trouble. You get in these echo chambers. Both the left and the right, equally guilty of this. So anyways, I tweeted that. I was like, BDS, whatever, boycott arms trades, boycott fucking Shakira going and performing, but don't boycott someone going and speaking. Like that's where I personally draw the line.
Well,
People freaked out. I got so mad.
Especially if he was going
And I
there
knew they
just
would.
speak. If he was
I
going
knew
there
they
to
would,
speak
but
and say like, hey, you guys are bad. You guys are doing
Right.
bad things.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, sure, why not? I
like that
mean,
rocks. And also that
that's-
speaks to my ODD impulse, right? Like
Yeah.
the idea of going in somewhere where everyone hates you and just speaking to them, like that rocks. Like I
can see your nipples getting
And he
hard
was just like, and
thinking about
he
it.
did the whole thing where he was like, it's, we have to listen to Palestinian voices. And it's like, actually, you don't. Actually, you can say whatever you want to whoever you want, and like, it's this same logic that led us to, like our horrible presidential candidates, this idea of surrendering our own agency to, and our own values that our country is founded on to those who are more enlightened with us because of their identity group. It's just that's not a good logic to base your politics on or to base your speaking engagements on.
Yes, but still, you know what you're doing, and you're asking for it half the time.
Yeah,
so,
it's true. That's true. It's true.
Hold on one
But
second.
we need more of that, right? People are so sensitive, and I'm in the privileged position where I can do that, which not a lot of people can because there's so many repercussions, financial and social.
I just got out of the sauna, so I'm a little hot still. Sweating. Can't stop sweating. I'm nervous, actually. It's nerves. But let's talk about the article you wrote for the American Conservative. You say that the new emails offer an insight into the world of special agents for hire, where the deep ties forged between special agents and intelligence officers serving their country are tapped for the benefit of the rich and powerful who can afford services in an elevated lane of justice reserved for those who operate above the law. How'd you get to that conclusion through these new emails?
Well, again, this builds on the other work that I've talked about on this show, which is, especially the CIA's National Resources Division, which for 15 years, basically one reporter, Jeff Stein, and a couple of others, some at Politico, some just at random business organizations, have reported about the relationship between both retired CIA officers going to work for hedge funds and basically having one foot in the door where they can get intelligence on foreign markets through their contacts and their buddies in the agency, and basically use that leg up to benefit the hedge funds that are employing them. But also the fact that many intelligence agencies have maintained a moonlighting policy whereby they are allowed to go and work for these places and collect a second paycheck. And the idea is obviously that, it's a two-way street, right? The hedge fund can get their information out of the agency, and the agency can get information out of the hedge fund and the hedge fund's representatives. What could go wrong?
What could go wrong?
And so, to me, this is the most interesting nexus. It is not. I've read a lot of these emails. I'm not seeing this guy was a spy master. This guy, he certainly was trying to be. Again, he certainly was playing the game like he was. But the guy was a fucking moron. And he wasn't very successful at it.
Was a moron.
He was very successful at manipulating Les Wexner and Leon Black into giving him millions and millions of dollars. But there's not a lot of evidence that he was extorting people beyond that.
Yes.
But anyways,
we want to say yes. We don't have that yet.
Yeah, we do not have the FBI files. And my guess is, I bet you I'll eat my shoe on something if those files are ever released. There's going to be crazy stuff in there. I don't doubt it. There's been crazy stuff in every release since then. There's been new relationships. I don't know if it's going to show that he's directing Mossad. But anyways, going back to my article, what this shows is that Epstein was contracting with a private investigation firm, a really large, powerful private investigation firm that was founded by two senior DEA agents. And again, as we talked about with the CIA stuff, like when you reach a certain level, you not only have a certain level of wealth, really, you no longer only have access to big law attorneys, right, who cycled into U.S. Attorney's Office, into the Department of Justice, and then left to go work for big law. But what this shows, which he did do, by the way, I mean, he had former DOJ attorneys, right, on his defense team. But what this shows is that it goes beyond just main justice. You have DEA, You have FBI. Ghislaine, in one of the newly released emails, talks about how she bumped into someone claiming to be a CIA operative, was the exact term used, which I find to be very dubious, but nonetheless shows, again, someone recognizing that the connections to intelligence agencies and law enforcement agencies are extremely lucrative, right? And, basically was paying these people to do litigation support. I've reported for Rolling Stone previously that a private investigation firm that he hired was intimidating and surveilling FBI agents. Now we know that he was contracting with a firm overseen by former DEA agents. And also, what we have a record of is that firm was also hosting meet and greet luncheons and breakfasts with other current and former agents from NYPD's intelligence bureau, from DEA, from FBI, from the French intelligence service. So again, those meet and greets were not, hey, come and meet this guy so that they can help assassinate someone for you. This was not cloak and dagger stuff. This was, these people have connections right back into national intelligence gathering systems, and that's the truth. And that happens all the time. You can watch an ATV show and they go and they hire a PI, right, who's a former bureau guy. And, they say, oh, you need a skip trace. Oh, you need a license plate read. Okay, let me call my buddy, right? So I think what I hope we continue to see more of is an interrogation over this public-private nexus on the one hand with FBI, DEA, CIA. And then in addition, we're also seeing it with the banks, right? Ron Wyden has subpoenaed all these banks. House Oversight is subpoenaing banks. I think we're going to see a lot less of that with the IC, right? Like, I have contacted members on Oversight and pushed them and said, will you do the same thing with the intelligence community? Will you subpoena records, from national resources? Will you subpoena records from DEA? Will you subpoena records from DOD? I got a FOIA request that showed that Epstein's jet got picked up on a joint Homeland Security DOD joint task force, right? So it's like, how many places this guy's name spread across? And again, like, I just think there is more. There is concrete information, and we should demand that concrete information instead of taking what little stuff we have and being satisfied that shows that he was an intelligence asset. Let's not be satisfied with that. Let's demand more information to show how much larger this, conspiracy was, how many more people it engulfed.
How would you visualize, from what you've gathered so far, the Jeffrey Epstein map, the nexus of power? Because it does sound like he wasn't the center figure here. I mean, I suppose you could draw it that way, but it just sounds like he's sprinkled everywhere. I mean, what does it look like in your mind?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it looks like, so one thing that's really interesting in his emails is, like, it's full of events, right? Like, and his personal secretary is always asking him, like, this is what your schedule looks like. Here's who's going to be at this event. Here's who's going to be at that event. And, it feels very untargeted in many ways, right? Like, instead of it being like, I need this person, or I want this person, or this is really good, it's sort of like, how many of these connections can I accumulate in any given week? How many people can I meet
It's
with?
fucking Pokemon style, Yeah.
And then people emerge as priorities, right? You've got this person who's really shockingly little scrutiny, this UAE royal named Bin Sulayem, who shows up over and over and over again and is asking for Epstein about advice of going to the presidential inauguration, and is involved in all of these developments, both in the Virgin Islands, and is talking about, developments in the Virgin Islands, all these other places. There's Mendelsohn, the British fixer, who himself has all these connections. There's Prince Andrew. There's obviously Leon Black. So it's not to say that he doesn't find these whales, right, who he kind of settles on, right? And he can feel all of a sudden, like, okay, there's this energy, there's this back and forth. But then he's constantly using his Rolodex to try to ingratiate himself with them further, set up more meetings with them. And I think that's, that's my belief of what the story is with his money, right? That he worked for Bear Stearns, he worked for this fancy kids school. He started recognizing his own skill and ability at cultivating people in New York high society, and was basically able to wiggle in with Wexner, and then through Wexner, Leon Black, and basically, I think it was a combination of embezzlement, like straight up crime, and sweet talking, and a sort of subtle, perverse extortion. Like, I don't think there's a lot of evidence or direct evidence with Wexner, but certainly with Leon Black's record, right? I mean, there have been some pretty serious sexual allegations leveled against him.
If people haven't read the Leon Black sex allegations, I would really recommend you do that. Not recommend it, and it's you ought to, but it's horrific. I mean, I think he raped a 14-year-old with Down syndrome or something. I think that's what it was.
There are a lot of allegations.
It's really fucking I mean, it's like dirty, disgusting, death penalty style stuff. And now his son is in the Trump administration. So that's cool, right?
Yeah. That is crazy.
It is like influence. I guess people had it in maybe QAnon, gotta give him some credit sometimes. Theirs was more dastardly. Theirs was more fantastical. This notion of sexual blackmail, adrenochrome, and their reality was always going to be a lot more boring than that. But it's still really bad. I mean,
look, like it's not. There's more far-flung conspiracies, right, than a guy who's addicted to this videotaped other rich and powerful people doing this. And by the way, I'm on the record saying that, like, I do think that once you hit a certain level of the elite, like, it becomes, what can we get away with, right? It becomes like, what sick, twisted shit can we do that makes us, that reinforces our knowledge of being above the law, right? I mean, that's gone on for millennia, right? Like, that goes back to ancient Rome. So I don't think that like, that's also not out of my realm of possibility. However, I just think that limits you, right? Like, it actually limits you if you're only going after people who are willing to, fucking screw kids or whatever. His ambitions were greater than that, I think.
Right. Well, yeah, because I don't think. I mean, I would hope that Noam Chomsky wasn't fucking kids. He was just like hanging out, I guess, which is all. It's still fucking weird.
Well, no, it still shows how twisted people are. And the pathology that people are willing to look the other way to get their fucking, research money or whatever.
Or just hang out, just like have access. It does feel like it's a lot of access. And I believe that Nick Bryant would talk about this, that these people, these wealthy, powerful people who are having sex with children, it's not that they're pedophiles. It's more of an omerta. It's like, can you keep a secret? If you want to join the club, this is the ritual you have to do so that we always have something over you so that you can never leave. And if you do, it's over for you, which I guess is easier than like killing them, I guess. Yeah.
Right. But again, it's just like, I don't know. I still think that, like, there are plenty of billionaires who are not going to do that. Right. Like, so that's not a good. What's more useful is telling a billionaire, like, I'm going to introduce you to someone who's really smart or really powerful. Like, that is a universal currency, right? As opposed to something of like, you don't know, like, or at least me personally, I don't think that once you make $1 billion, you automatically decide that you're going to start fucking kids. I do think you probably decide that you want to keep making money, or at least you want access to other people that your money enables. And I think, I don't know, the Larry Summers example, I think, is really interesting. If you look at his trajectory, where, I don't know, my read of Summers is sort of like, this guy did, like, he got into like MIT when he was like 16, right? He graduated.
Well, his father and his grandfather were famous economists as well. So Nobel laureates, I believe. So
sure, but like, he wasn't he was able to write an econ paper. He was able to do research. Like, this guy was not, but he was a weird looking guy, and he was always awkward and always weird.
He has the terrible
And-
voice. His speaking voice is
And like,
awful.
I feel like I've seen this happen. You see this happen at every level. I mean, I see this happen to other journalists where like they get a little piece, they get a little bit of fame, they get a little bit of recognition, and then it's just like everything goes out the window. And it's like they were cool or they were fat when they were growing up or whatever. I don't know. They were a fucking loser, and all of a sudden they get that like one little like fucking sugar spike, and it's just like everything goes out the window, and it's just the constant pursuit of that over and over again. I see this happen to people, and it's like. I think that is when you go through the Summers, emails, it's just so pathetic, right? Where it's like he's just like blathering about like, can you give me girl advice? And like, oh, like, do you know any other fancy people I can hang out with? And like it's just fucking pathetic. But I think that mentality is very universal among that class of people, especially just weird fucks, especially all the scientists, right?
Fucking nerds, dude. They're all they're nerds.
The nerds, the Silicon Valley guys, right? You look at the picture of the PayPal Mafia guys, right? You look at Bezos from like 30 years ago, like these guys were fucking losers. And, you can see Epstein manipulating them where he's like, I'm the man. And like, I know everyone. And like, I know hot girls. And like, and it's incredible. It's just incredible how dumb these fuckers are. It's crazy.
And I agree. I think the emails reveal that they are very stupid, that they fail upwards. Larry Summers is an interesting example. I mean, he's basically like the equivalent of Henry Kissinger to the economy. I mean, he is directly responsible for the deaths of millions of people. He implemented the shock doctrine in Russia. He's responsible for NAFTA, for deregulating
economies across the globe. Yeah, absolutely.
Larry Summers is the reason why everything sucks right now. I mean, it's fucking his fault.
I don't know if he's the reason. He's certainly the theory man, right? He's certainly like the bag man for varied interests.
He's not just the bagman, though. I mean, Obama fucking put him in his administration to solve the crisis that he himself created.
No, I'm not defending Larry Summers. I'm just saying
I know.
almost like a ventriloquist dummy, right? With every corporate hand in America and the globe shoved up his ass. So,
but everybody is to one extent or another. Nobody's like the master of the universe. Everybody's serving the machine.
Well, I don't know.
The collective interest.
Maybe. I don't know. I think Obama. I mean, I've been talking to people a lot about the Obama Zoran parallels, right?
That's bad.
Like. Oh, well, I mean, yeah, but the Obama thing is interesting where it's like he had this fucking massive mandate and he was like a guy, right? He was a guy who got elected and then he could choose how to use that mandate and he fucked it all up. And you can say like, oh,
because he had Larry Summers like slobbering in his ear.
Because he freaked out. Yeah, and he reappointed all the Bush administration NatSec figures because he freaked out. And he but yeah, so I don't know. I just think like, I don't know. I always view Summers as more of just like he's just such a like miserable golem-like character as opposed to someone who's like seems more
kind of talks like this.
ridiculous.
Fucking loser!
Guy.
What a loser! No, and it is funny that these morons are pulling the strings, and there is like a satisfaction I think we should all take in the. I don't know if they're capable of embarrassment. Like Larry Summers might be such a sociopath that he is beyond shame, and I liked how he's agreed to step away from all of these things he's involved in, but then come back. I think he says it with the attitude being like, "But I'll be back."
This will blow over. Yeah.
Yeah. I'll just reflect a little, and then I'll come back because I'm too valuable to not be around.
I mean, we don't really have like. I feel like he's saying that. Based on this sort of like idea that like Me Too is over, right? Like that blew over. But like, I don't know. Do you think there's corollaries to this Epstein stuff? Like, is the closest corollary like the church committee or
I was
like,
thinking about that
bipartisan sort of, I don't know. It's kind of interesting.
Well, and the church committee did reveal a lot about the inner workings of the intelligence of the CIA, and I hope that is the case. I hope that is the corollary. I am skeptical.
Although I mean, you want to go back to your anointed friends and associates. I mean, there were reforms, right? in a sense, but they
But
were
it's just
extraordinarily partial. And I mean, especially with the FBI, especially with the COINTELPRO revelations. I mean, those reforms ended up being so lackluster and marginal because they did not. They if I'm getting this right, effectively what they did is they just sort of compelled the attorney general to issue new guidelines, and nothing was ever enshrined, right, in law. It was basically like they were direct there was instructions given, mandated for the FBI director, but nothing ever was codified. And so those directives have slowly just been watered down over and over again.
no,
Um,
it all went underground. George H.W. Bush was put in charge of the CIA to clean it up. It just basically put a nice little face on it. They didn't stop doing anything they did, but we at least got to see it. So I mean, that is the cynical way of looking at it. Is just that this sexual blackmail or whatever it is Epstein is doing exactly is clearly power. It's clearly valuable enough that they're not going to stop doing it. I mean, it doesn't end with Epstein, right? It keeps if it ain't broke, don't fix it. You know, why would they stop doing what they're doing just because they got caught? I think Epstein is a great scapegoat for the way the machine works. It
yeah,
helps that
yeah,
it helps that he's Jewish. I mean, I think
yeah,
that's great.
no, but that's sort of my point is that like he did do a lot of fucked up shit, and there is an intersection absolutely with the intelligence community and the law enforcement community. I just think this is the danger with some conspiracies is that like they take you away from the true conspiracy, which is less interesting but more real, which is like
Mhm.
often the case. I mean, I think this is also how I feel about what's happening right now with the Department of Homeland Security, right? I think a lot of people feel like because there's so much attention and criticism of what ICE is doing and what DHS is doing, what CBP is doing, that like it's being covered and it's the we have to go and dig and find the real CIA whatever domestic operations, but it's dangerous because like basically what's happening is that they are building a COINTELPRO program that's being run through DHS. DHS has set up task forces, over 50 across America, which with the whole purpose of which is to envelop all the other interagency task forces and agencies under the auspices of the most insane federal agency that was created in the wake of 9/11 to be the domestic homeland security, domestic national security force. So, and it's like that's been reported on, right? Like that's out there, but it's sort of like and I share this too. I get it as an investigative reporter where you have this impulse that's kind of like, okay, well, it's in the Post and it's in the Times and, you can find information about this out there. But like, to me, I'm like, well, we need more. We need like, if you want to know the most danger, the biggest threat, like this is, it's being reported on actually right now, and, and the Senate actually is taking some action on it, right? They're trying to subpoena the feds for information about like what groups are they putting on this fucking watch list. Your listeners are probably on this group, right? People who are skeptical of the
Yeah.
national security agencies, people who are skeptical of ICE. I mean, you want to talk about conspiracy and being put on a list that fucking targeted individuals or whatever. It is happening, but it's not happening in the CIA. It's happening in the most new lawless post 9/11 agency. And so again, I think people get trapped in going back to the darkest moments of US intel history in the whatever 50s, 60s and 70s, but it's like the obsession with that can completely blind you from the fact that like they are doing the same thing and it's a lot more above ground this time, and it's the same. I mean, they're going after political groups. They're going after free speech. And we don't have all the information, but it is there. And I wish that people would get more involved in that. It's like we know where it is. We know where it's going down. And like we should, people should be organizing to combat what we know is happening because it's an easy target. It's sitting there. We know what it is. We know
Well,
how to label it.
it is funny that Alex Jones has been right this whole time. I mean, that all that Alex Jones was predicting for these years about what the government totalitarian takeover is happening,
There
but he's
is some
cool with
truth.
it now.
There is some
Yeah.
truth there, and it speaks to something that people feel in their bones, right? He gets a lot wrong, but he's also he is channeling very real concerns about our environment, about our pharmaceutical industry, about a national security state that's grown cancerous and out of control. Like, he doesn't have any information about what's actually happening, so he sells fucking supplements. But all the points on his show are correct. I mean, I would even say the stuff with gun violence also has its root in the fact that people know somehow that part of the issue is guns, but part of the issue is some deep rot in our society that is not simply the guns. It's also something that is driving people to commit these shootings. So, I
Right.
mean, yeah, in a sense, Alex Jones is this like weird piece of the American psyche that is grounded in truth and reality. It's just completely bent 180, and any partial facts are removed. It's like
Right.
a gut.
And I think that the Noited community would say that he's there to fed coat or shit coat these truths by tainting them with his presence. I mean,
Right.
he made the 9/11 truth movement seem fucking ridiculous because he became the face of the 9/11 truther movement.
Right.
Uh,
And that's the 9/11. I mean, oh boy, I'm gonna get him riled up with this one. But the 9/11 truth movement is also a great missed opportunity to investigate the intelligence agencies, right? To try to focus on them, focus on them, focus on them, and instead it got blown out to all these external actors and allowed them to continue, the failures that led to 9/11. But that's
failures.
well,
But
I mean,
no,
yeah, I mean,
they're
right? Like
doing
we know,
this.
but we
They're
know that, yeah, this is a
they're
whole other can of worms.
they're
That
doing this with 9/11 right now. In particular, Tucker Carlson, his 9/11 video series that he did absolves the CIA and puts the blame squarely on Israel. I mean, that's what his goal was to do there. So you see, and of course, there's an element of truth that Israel was involved in 9/11, but they weren't the masterminds behind
what
it.
about the FBI? I mean, what about the fact that the FBI literally had some of these guys written up and were ringing the alarm bells and were calling into the NSA. I mean, some of these special agents at field offices were knocking down the door that like these guys are gonna drive a plane into something, and that got completely ignored. But instead of saying like what is going on at the FBI that this was allowed to happen, right? Like it was investigated. It was written up as a fluke, and the FBI's weird organizational structure where you have these 50 fiefdoms all running their own corrupt bullshit, it endures. I mean, I think one of the critical moments that really determined America's trajectory was in the immediate aftermath of 9/11, right? The FBI was almost disbanded. I mean, the FBI was truly almost disbanded. Robert Mueller had to go and beg and plead like a dog to the congressional committees to demand that the Bureau wasn't split into a domestic and foreign intelligence service like they have in the UK. And I think I think it would be a lot easier to get a handle on this rogue behavior if we had a bifurcation there. But instead what we have so-called national security and domestic concerns combined in the same agencies. And that leads to this total blurring where we start labeling all kinds of Americans as violent, domestic, extremist, terrorists, right? And that's how we get to the point of criticizing your government all of a sudden becomes extremism and terrorism, whether you're on the left or the right. So anyways, I think the 9/11 moment is very interesting. I think that's a moment that people don't really understand, that like there was actually this weird potential for everything to be remade in the opposite way than the post 9/11 consensus. But in fact, obviously it's always easier to kind of stay with the systems that already exist, right? In these huge bureaucracies. But I don't know. I was just talking to someone about that today.
It's also tough, and people will give you and Ken Klippenstein shit because your sources are intelligence.
Well, and we're paid, right? I mean, we're paid both. We take money both from Soros, we take money from Mossad, we take money from CIA. I mean, any intelligence agency they can get us. We'll take a.
I've
we'll take
seen
our
how
case.
you live. You're living large.
Oh yeah, look at this.
Yeah. Look,
One bedroom. Oh, it's nice.
But it is tough, and you see this especially with ufologists and UFO disclosure stuff, where right now you have that documentary that came out, The Age of Disclosure, interviewing 34 former like military folk, basically, and it's just like, how can you trust them? And I wonder if you personally, like, do you have to treat every source you use with a large grain of salt, with a lot of skepticism, because they could be feeding you disinformation, because you never are out of the woods when you're intelligence, right?
Yeah, but I mean, I don't really want to speak for him because who knows what that guy's up to. That guy's weird. Even knows what ethnicity he is, let alone his sources. I'm talking about Ken, but for me, I mean, look, it's mainly people who reach out to me to be critical of their agency, right? And in many cases, or in some cases, they provide documents. But I mean, the question is look, what's the end result? What's the end point of the story? Are they pimping a conflict somewhere else? Are they pimping we should be doing more in this conflict and not this conflict? Are they saying we should be using more of this contractor or that contractor? Or are they saying look, this system is not working? And more often than not, these people are not. I mean, some of the guys who are out who have fully flipped, right? And the formers are this bad thing happened to me here. This was a critical problem, and they're fully against it. But I mean, I'll be honest with you. Most of the people think that there's a problem in their agency that should be fixed, and they want it known. But I mean, I don't know. I just think you have to decide. Are you going to read a bunch of cracked out books about this from the 70s? Or are you going to try to talk to people and find a few people who are critical? I mean, I just think it's ignorant to think that, that it's homogenous. It's like any other bureaucracy, right? The people are crazy. People are weird. People are unique. And it's true. The source, the New York Times' sources are the official sources, right? Or they represent a powerful faction within the agency or within the bureau, right? All the stuff critical of Patel. There are, retiree groups who kind of formulate their opinion of being anti-Trump. We love the bureau, but he's hurting the bureau, and so we want it. We're going to leak this shit to you. That's obviously real, and that's obviously manipulative. And so I do think you have to be careful. I think you have to be really careful, and you have to reason is there a way to corroborate this? Why is this person telling me this? I don't think I ever take anything one person says to me at face value, because you always know that there's a motivation for why they're telling you. But I think I don't really talk to people who are in at the high levels, who would be the kind of people that are feeding me shit. I don't have that kind of access. But who does? The New York Times, the Washington Post. I'll tell you, I was on a congressional presser a week or two ago, right? This was an official press conference for a powerful member of Congress, and the whole thing is this is on background attributable to what was it? Attributable to sources with knowledge of, right? Go read a New York Times article about the CIA or FBI and see what the attribution is, right? These are fucking press conferences sometimes with the Bureau or CIA or DOD leadership. It's being spoon-fed, and then it's misdirected out of it. I've never been invited to something like that before. This is the first and probably the last one I've ever been in. But yeah, but I get that distrust, but I would, and I think I was probably distrustful of people like that for a while, but I don't know, you just what about Snowden? What about Daniel Ellsberg?
Yeah, people, they say Snowden's a spook.
Well, okay, sure, but I'm just saying, is there anyone you can trust from in there? And if there's not, then how do you? I don't know. Then what's the answer?
Yeah,
how do you get information out about it? I don't know.
I think that you're right. it makes perfect sense that you would have disgruntled people within this massive bureaucracy that either they feel some moral imperative, or they want to sabotage someone else's career because they don't like them and maybe they want to take their job so they could undercut them.
Totally. That's definitely real. Yeah,
there's
absolutely.
so many reasons why. I mean, the amount of infighting we would see in they've done a pretty good job in this Trump administration to clamp down on a lot of like the cattiness, like the reality show element of it, but it still exists.
I don't know. The shit between ODNI and CIA and internal FBI. I mean, there's still a lot of. There's a lot.
I know. But
infighting.
even like the continuing of Signalgate stuff. Did you see that? What they were talking? They were talking about Usha. It's pretty bad. Like I don't know, but yeah, of course there's you're going to get that kind of stuff. And I remember seeing people say, I forget. I think it was some leaked docs that I think a journalist received from Iran that they stole. And the New York Times wouldn't publish it, being like, "Oh, it's immoral for us to publish these
That was
stolen."
Ken. I'm pretty sure that was Ken.
Was that Ken that did it?
Well,
Yeah, it was Ken.
'cause
Yeah.
There was like the right. There was the
That was when it was at the
JD
Intercept,
Vance
right?
dossier, right?
There was yes. I remember the JD Vance dossier.
That was when we left. Yeah,
Okay.
but yeah, that's a great example of like, right? Are you not going to publish that shit because it came from a foreign
Revolutionary
adversary?
Guard?
Like, right. I mean, I think the point is just like you got to give context and you got to not say like this is happening. Sources say it's like no, like two guys, and I try to do that in my articles about the intel agencies where I try to say this is what this former paramilitary officer told me. This is what this former case officer told me. I mean, and then I try to like show readers like yeah, like I don't know. Fucking you.
Yeah.
I've tried to decide whether this is real and worth printing, and then you also should try to decide whether it's real. But yeah,
I think the noited worldview, which is one that I do think when if you're that paranoid, it can become overwhelming, and you can't trust anybody, and everything is an op, and there's something behind everybody's motivation. At some point, I feel like you do have to kind of just like draw a line and be like, okay, I'm gonna like I have to at least have some sense of the world. There has to be some infrastructure to it that isn't just all one great operation.
and I'll give you another example. Like I've been working on a book about the FBI, and I've been trying to read everything that's out there. In addition to talking to people, I try to just read everything. And, like there's this one book by this, like, I don't know where he's at now, but he's a very prolific writer named Garrett Graff. And I mean, his book on Mueller and the FBI, like it's access journalism 101. Like he got crazy access to the Bureau and he told a very positive, largely positive story about the Bureau, right? And he pulled punches and, and he got all this access and like that's the deal, right? Now, does that mean that book is useless? No, actually. I mean, you have to recognize like a lot of people are slurping that book up, right, off the New York Times bestseller list or whatever. But as a critical thinker and as a reporter, like this guy is reporting on, he's quoting officials. He is giving you their perspective or the perspective they want out there. He's tracing timelines that other people haven't seen. And so, you can take that book and say like, and burn it and say there's nothing new here. Or you can read the people who are getting spoon-fed and try to develop a sense of, okay, what does this mean? Why are they being fed this story, right? What contrasts to this story? How do I use this as a foil to get to the real story? So I don't know. I just think like people are so ready to just like discount this stuff. And indeed, like I'm not denying that a huge portion of it is tainted and is misdirection, but you can still learn from that, like you have to be careful that you're not building this ladder that's 100 different ops deep and realizing that like you're smart enough to figure out what's going on, again, and this all goes back to my whole thing of like that conspiracy theories can feel empowering while simultaneously being disempowering because they eliminate any agency from, people as a collective. And that's what I don't like. Like, I think we have the power to reform these cocksuckers, I think we have the power to change this system. And it's like, And when it's a never-ending conspiracy, it eliminates any agency anyone has to change things.
And that's where I take a lot of solace in the stupidity of these people.
They're dumb.
They're very dumb. They're very
and it
dumb.
all comes down to fear. That's the other piece too that I hate. Like, why did Congress not break up the FBI? Because they were afraid of what would be missed, right? Why did Obama hire all these NatSec advisors out of the Bush administration, which he ran, a whole campaign on opposing? Because he was afraid that there was going to be another attack, right? And so, in the end, they are very smart when it comes to scaring the shit out of the American public and politicians, but they're not omniscient, and they actually don't have as much power as they shake around.
Like any good scammer, they're very clever. I think they're very good at subterfuge.
They're very sneaky, but they're not that smart or powerful.
No. And I think, so it sounds like the solution is don't be bitch made. Stop being bitch made.
Yeah, and that's why I think it's such a goddamn shame that Trump ultimately folded on his promise, because in the end, the only person who's going to be able to break this shit up is a crazy person, is someone who is able to subdue their gut impulse to listen to the experts in the room and just take a wrecking ball to things that need to be broken up. And look, it's a lot easier to say on the outside than when you're in that room and when you've got access to the Area 51 alien transmission weapons systems and all the lights are blinking and they're saying, "Oh, sir, we've got incoming from Iran and Libya and oh my God."
It's just Stephen Miller just like flipping the lights back and forth.
Imagine that. I mean, they've practiced this for 60, 70 years, right? Both the DOD and the intel community. So I am actually very sympathetic to I feel like if I was in that situation, I'm not sure I'm crazy enough to tear it all up, but that's why we need someone who is, to get in there and
so
do
crazier than Trump. That's what we need. What else?
Crazy in a different way, I think, right?
Yeah. To end things, I do want to ask, what are you hopeful is going to come out? Are there going to be greater consequences than just Larry Summers resigning from the board of OpenAI? What are you hoping comes out, and what are you hoping the consequences will be?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I think the bank stuff is pretty incredibly incriminating. I mean, they're saying that this infected the entire C-suite of JP Morgan, right? I think that's pretty astounding. I'm less interested in pot shots on, random suckers and losers from Harvard University or, various labs. I mean, I think those people should be named and shamed, but in terms of systemic change, I'm not sure that's where we're going to see it. Honestly, if I'm being completely honest, my hope is that this, I think that the legislative branch has effectively given up on a lot of the tools that it has outside of passing legislation to, investigate the people destroying our country and our world and immiserating all of us. And so I'm really interested in pursuing some of these people in Congress and holding them accountable to not stop when this whole thing is done, but to say, look at look at the Democratic minority, right, on House oversight, using their subpoena power to haul in banking executives, to haul in tech executives. This is what Congress should be doing in an era where we have a hyper expanded executive. They have all this ability to use both their subpoena power, their committee powers, and their visibility to, put a laser focus on things. And I don't know, honestly, my hope is that, and I'm going to try to do some writing about this, is that we see Congress kind of grow a pair again on, not just doing messaging legislation, right? Where they are oh, we're going to pass this bill that never passes. And they just put up a bill that makes it seem like they're doing something, but they actually haul people in front of them and they actually use their subpoena power and they actually, hold people accountable and change public opinion, with the powers that they have instead of just cowering and crying like idiots.
All right. I like that. Well, apology accepted, Dan. You're welcome back into our community. Thank you for the good work that you do. Yes, if you haven't already, please subscribe to Deeper States. It's where Dan's putting out all his good work.
And just like come at me there. Let's get into it in the comments. Send me an email.
Yeah, I'll answer any email people send me typically.
Yeah.
So, all right, buddy, keep up the good work.
My grandfather died. A Bowery bone. My grandfather died. The son of an Irish man. On the Bowery.